Hey guys, today we're going to start talking about solving word problems using equations. Almost all of our answers for these will either be a two-step equation or a one-step equation. My main goal for these is not to find out what the answer is, but how we can represent the situation using a mathematical equation. Kind of like what we were doing with expression word problems last chapter. So some of these things down below we've already talked about in class, so just to go over them again, our first step is to make sure that we underline the important stuff. And that includes the question. A lot of times these problems are really just reading problems. So go through, underline the stuff that actually matters, so you don't have to reread the thing over and over and over again. Number 2, identify the variable and write what it represents. So find out what our unknown is in this problem. And then say that like X is the number of pizza boxes. Really, this is going back to underlining the question and see what the question is actually asking of us. Then go through and find your keywords to help you form an equation. Once you have your important stuff and your keywords, you can go ahead and write and solve your equation. After you solve, make sure you go back to the question and answer the question in the problem. All right, I have a couple examples down below that I want us to work through together, and then you guys will have an activity where you get to practice this on your own. All right, so this first one. When Adele's parents are away celebrating their anniversary, she gets to sleep over for a week at her grandparents' house. Afterwards, Adele decides to make her grandparents a photo album of their time together. There are 7 pages in the album. Adele puts the same number of photos on each page, for a total of 42 photos. Which equation can you use to find the number of photos on each page? So going through, there's a lot of useless stuff in there that really, when it comes to writing what the equation is, I don't really care about. So the only important things are that there are 7 pages in the album, a total of 42 photos. We know that she wants to put the same number of photos on each page. And then the question is, which total can be used to find the number of photos on each page? Defining our variable, I already have one and said P is what our variable means, but what does it actually represent in the problem? Well, in the question it says, can you use to find the number of photos on each page? So we don't know how many photos are on each page, so that's what we're trying to find. P is the number of photos on each page. So now we have to go back and say, okay, are there any keywords up there? Well, really, I'm seeing the word each twice on here. And to me, each is kind of a huge key word. That means multiplying. So I know I'm going to take 2 things and I'm going to multiply them together. So already I can go down and look at my equations that are in my multiple choice. I'm not adding anything together. I'm not taking the number of photos and subtracting number of pages. Again, I'm saying I'm multiplying. So it's either going to be I take the number of pages and I multiply by how many photos are on each page, or I take how many photos are on each page and I divide it by the number of pages. That one doesn't really make sense. C is our final answer. And just to run that through, look at the story. If I take the number of pages and multiply it by the number of photos on each page, photos on page, that should equal to the total number of photos. Oop. That makes sense. All right, and we answered our question. That's pretty good. Looking at our next problem, another one-step equation is going to be coming out of this long word problem. At the school's holiday craft fair, Darnell and his classmates get to make gingerbread houses. Their teacher divides a bag of licorice ropes evenly among the 8 students at the table. Each student gets 4 licorice ropes to decorate the roof of their gingerbread house. Which equation can you use to find the number of licorice rope that came in the bag? Okay, again, there's a lot of stuff in there that's kind of, I'm going to go ahead and say useless, not important. So I'm just going to go through and underline the stuff that I think, all right, that's pretty important. It says that their teacher divides a bag of licorice ropes evenly among the 8 students. Each student gets 4 licorice ropes to decorate. And then the question is, which equation can you use to find the number of licorice rope that came in the bag? So now we have to define our variable. I went ahead and said R. What does R mean in this problem? Well, looking back at the question, it said, can you use to find the number of licorice ropes that came in the bag? So that's what we're trying to find. That's our unknown value, our variable. R is equal to the number of licorice. I could really go for some licorice right now. That came in the bag. I'm a huge fan of Twizzlers, guys. It's so good. All right, going back into the word problem. What's my important stuff? Are there any key words in the stuff that we underlined? Divides. That's a huge one. They're telling us that we're taking a number and dividing it by how many students are at each table. So we know we're not adding. I know I'm not subtracting. I know I'm not multiplying. The problem said specifically that we are dividing. And looking at what's going on there, we said R is the total number in the bag. And I'm dividing that by the number of students. And that should equal to how many licorice each student gets, which is our 4. And that makes sense. All right, these seem a little too easy for you guys. I want to pump it up and say, hey, let's look at some 2-step equations that we have to form in here. So the nice thing about these is the sentence structure is a lot smaller. You don't have to read as much, but we are really analyzing the few words that they give us to see, all right, which of these 2-step equations are we dealing with? So it says that Kylie is getting her car serviced by Scott. He charges $35 for each car plus $7 per hour. Write an equation that represents this scenario if Kylie's car was $63. So my important information, we know that he charged $35 for each car plus $7 per hour. And we want to write an equation that represents this scenario if Kylie's car was $63. So now we have to define our variable x. What's our unknown in this? What don't we know? We can't really go back to like the question because it says write an equation that represents this scenario if Kylie's car bill was $63. So that can't really help us out. But if I look at the 2 equations that they gave us, I know that I'm going to be taking my variable and multiplying it by 7. So whatever the 7 is, we know that they're going to have to be interacting with one another. So looking at that, I have $7 per hour. So X has to mean the number of hours that it was being serviced. So now the big thing is, looking at the difference between these 2 equations, I got plus 35 or minus 35. So is there anywhere in the original problem that said, hey, this is the sign that we have to deal with? Boom, right there. It says plus. I'm adding those 2 things together. So breaking up what the equation is. We have the cost per hour multiplied by the number of hours, and then adding that to the price per car. And that should equal to the total. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think that's a scenario that matches what's going on in the word problem. All right. Avery is writing a book. She already has 6 pages completed. If Avery writes 3 pages per hour, how many hours will Avery have to spend to have to have written a total of 18 pages? All right. My important stuff. Well, we already know that she has 6 pages completed. She started there, and then it seems like more is just being accumulated. If Avery writes 3 pages per hour, and then the question, how many hours will Avery have to spend to have a total of 18 pages? So P is my variable here. What does P mean? What's my unknown value that I have to find out? Well, they straight up say how many hours. So this is going to be the number of hours Avery is writing. Now let's see if there's any key words here. I'm seeing that the 3 and the number of hours are kind of together. If I know that she does 3 pages per hour, if I take that 3 and I multiply it by the number of hours, I'll get how many pages that she wrote in that time frame. But we already know that she has 6 pages completed. So what can I do with that 6 pages and my 3 times P? I could just add them together. So the number of pages she already has, and then the number of pages that she writes in P hours. And we're saying that the total is 18 pages. So looking below, A, B, or C, do we see that down here? Yeah, right here. B. B. Using your equation, answer the question from the word problem. So now that we've formed our equation here, 3p plus 6 equals 18, we have to solve this equation to find out what the answer is. So I'll go ahead and draw my line down the middle. Again, my main goal is to get P by itself, so I can find out the number of hours Avery has been writing. So I'll subtract 6 from both sides. I'll cancel these guys out, leaving me with 3P being equal to 18 minus 6, or 12. To get P by itself, I'm multiplying 3 and P together. So I'm going to go ahead and just divide both sides by 3. P is equal to 4. However, if you just says P equals 4, that really doesn't mean anything. What does P actually mean? The number of hours. So I can say that Avery has been writing for 4 hours. Whoop. All right, go back onto Schoology. You will see an assignment is there waiting for you to practice these word problems. If you have any questions, let me know.